back to the Sex Talk. I'm your host, Mo, and I am a sex therapist and psychotherapist and coach and author, and today I actually want to talk to you a little bit about something that we've talked a lot about on this channel, and it's sexual and gender identity.
Sex Talk.
So, I really wanted to make this video because I wanted to talk about sexuality and gender as social constructs, because we know that sexuality, and maybe you don't know this, so maybe this is why this video is good for you, sexuality lies on a continuum or a spectrum, let's say, and most human sexuality cannot be defined as 100% heterosexual or even 100% homosexual for that matter. In fact, if you're familiar with the Kinsey Scale, which I'll post a link somewhere down below, the Kinsey Scale there's a scale from 0 to 6, which suggests that you're either on one end of the spectrum where you're 0, a complete heterosexual, or 6, a complete homosexual. So two complete ends of the spectrum, right? But most people are sprinkled somewhere in between, okay? So we can potentially be attracted to, we can have sex with, we can be romantic with a variety of types of individuals, notwithstanding gender. So this sort of leads into the conversation about gender also being a social construct, as well as there being a continuum. On one end, you've got male, which is in our society described by masculinity. And on the other end, you've got female, which also in our society is described by femininity. Although in reality, those are very extremes, and most people lie somewhere in between in terms of feminine versus masculine. Some people are really, really feminine, but that doesn't mean that they are female. And they could be feminine and female, they could be feminine and non-female, they could be non-binary, they could be male. So gender identity is also hence a social construct. In other words, you can be a man and fall anywhere on the spectrum, male, masculine, feminine, and still identify as a man. Similarly, you can fall anywhere on the spectrum of masculine and feminine and identify as a female. Similarly, you might not identify as male or female, right? You might identify as non-binary, you might identify as transgender, you might identify as something else. Agender. Agender means they don't play by any of the social construct ideas. They just go as who they are. Another word that is often used is androgynous, which also kind of says I'm somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. Okay? Meaning I get to decide where on the gender spectrum I fall, as well as where on the sexuality spectrum continuum that I fall. I don't think of myself as super feminine. I do identify as female. I am a cisgendered female. And so I identify as a female, but I'm not super feminine, way feminine out on this. And in fact, I kind of feel like I have like this really great combination of masculine and feminine. I'm feminine when I feel like it, I'm masculine when I feel like it. Masculine and feminine don't identify me as a female. I get to decide where my gender identity lies and how much masculine and feminine I'm feeling on a particular day. Same with sexuality. I identify for a long time as bisexual. I have recently started identifying more as pansexual because I want to be more inclusive of different genders, because I am also inclusive as a partner and person of a variety of genders. So pansexual to me felt a little bit more inclusive, and I wanted to respect those that don't identify as male and female, because bisexual tends to suggest that there's only two, bi meaning two genders, two sexes, and there aren't. There's lots of them. So that is kind of how I wanted to. The other thing is like homosexual, heterosexual. Most people fall somewhere in between, but they choose to identify as heterosexual. They choose to identify as homosexual. Those are social constructs. Not only that, but those are personal identities. Some person that feels very strongly drawn to the same sex may feel that they have no other choice, but how they identify themselves is 100% a choice. A person who is very drawn to homosexual, to same sex, may still identify as heterosexual. That's their choice. We don't get to question that. And so this talk is really about identity, and we don't get to question, and we have to respect what other people tell us their gender and their sexual identity is. So I have this other video on this channel, and I'll link it here at the end, and it's called Why Some Straight Men Like Trans Women. And you know, we get a lot of comments on that video, like, they're not straight. And while that's accurate in the sense that no, they're not acting in a straight way, but if they identify as straight, we have to respect that identity for them, because these identities are social constructs. No one is straight. You may think that you are 100% straight, and you may have no inclination towards the same sex at all, but there's always an opportunity or an option to be sexually fluid. And many of us who are sexually active have experienced that sexual fluidity. Being held to this very rigid idea of heterosexuality can be really harmful for a lot of people. And if someone tells you that they're heterosexual, but they have a proclivity towards trans women or trans men or women or someone non-binary, that doesn't make them less heterosexual. You don't get to decide how they identify. Identity is not just a social construct, but is something that we own, and it is political. Okay, so this is the other point that I think that heterosexual people don't really understand, because for them, and for you if you're heterosexual, it's never an issue, because you don't have to fight for what is yours, because heterosexuality is accepted by the majority. But it's still a political identity and a social construct. Someone that is gay, someone that is lesbian, someone that is bisexual, someone that is pansexual, on the other hand, doesn't have that same privilege in society. So there is a more political bend to their identity. However, heterosexuality is still a political identity. Whether you choose to claim it as that or not, you're lucky, because you don't have to fight for anything. But if you were really truly to be honest with yourself, you would find that you're more sexually fluid than you might be giving yourself room or flexibility to be. And that's okay. No one's asking you to come out as bi or experiment with someone of the same gender or someone of a transgender or anything like that. I am just saying that when you identify as heterosexual, it's easy to label other people as gay, bi, they're not straight. But I just want to say that we get to identify how we are. If someone tells you that they're straight, believe them. If someone tells you that they're gay, believe them. If someone says they're confused and not sure, allow them to be. Because being confused and not sure simply means that maybe they're all over the spectrum. And guess what? That's normal. We get to be that. We get to decide that. I decided for a long time I was bisexual, and then I decided I was pansexual. I get to say that. I get to say that. I have had people tell me, and I love this so much, "Oh, you're dating a man now? I thought you were gay." "Oh, well, you're with a man. Don't you ever miss being with a woman?" And here's the thing, you can be monogamous too, or non-monogamous, right? Like, we have so many choices when it comes to the labels we use around sexuality. Monogamy and non-monogamy, in very much a similar way, also fall on a continuum. Some people feel very monogamous in their life and they feel devoted to one person for their entire life. Some people are like in the middle somewhere, they're serial monogamists where they kind of jump from relationship to relationship in their life. That's pretty common in our society. And then some people are non-monogamous. Ideally, when they're practicing non-monogamy, they're doing it ethically, and I have a ton of videos on that as well. But again, if someone tells you that they identify as non-monogamous, you believe them. Because that is something that is also on a continuum, on a spectrum. So identity, whether it's about sexuality, whether it's about gender, whether it's about monogamy versus non-monogamy, is something that we get to identify for ourselves. And so when someone tells you that they're a polyamorous, pansexual, cisgendered female, you believe them. If someone tells you they're a monogamous, homosexual, trans man, guess what? You believe them. So that's it for today. Just wanted to remind everybody to respect one another, to listen, and when in doubt, you can ask questions, but there are some questions that you shouldn't ask. If someone doesn't tell you something about their sexuality or their gender or their identification, how they identify in their relationships, maybe they're not ready to talk about it. And that should also be okay. So the moral of today's story is respect people around you. Respect that they know what they want and they know what they need. Respect that if they wanted to change the name of the way they identify, that they would. Respect that if they wanted to share information with you, they would. And respect that if they wanted help, that they would ask for it. That's it for today. My name's Mo. And that was a sex talk.
The sex talk.
The sex talk.